Also you see the word. So we also see the word performance used by in a very popular way by the compeers who do reality shows, the dance shows, and the other shows where they come and tell the judges of the shows, what do you think of the performance of this person? So there we don't mean the word performance in a fictional sense. We mean in a very realistic sense. But when it comes to acting, it is fictional. So there are two dimensions to the word performance. One is what it is, and then as if. The is and the as if is something about performance that gets closer and closer, and it is it's almost the line between is and what if, is and what if, as if, is and as if, is closer and closer when it comes to the class. You do pretend to be somebody else, and you also take it for the real at the same time. It happens just about at the same time. So that is where I think the English classroom is an important space for me. Perhaps if you take this performance techniques that I'm going to talk about to other classrooms also, it should help in the other classrooms as well. Right. Let me go a little forward. Uh, yeah. So let us look at this. I have some four statements here. One is called classroom stage. Some of our classrooms have a stage, and it has, and the purpose of that stage is for the teacher to stand so that he or she is visible to the audience. So the 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 purpose of that stage is basically utilitarian. It is useful, and we attribute no other meaning to that stage. It will be good if the teacher stands on the stage. Therefore, if it is a large classroom, a lot of people can see the teacher, or the teacher can be able to turn towards the board and write from the top, uh, so that they'll have that kind of height. That's why the platform, it's more like a platform. So that's the classroom stage. But I'm in the next stage, I'm talking about classroom as a stage. That the second stage is now a theater stage. So what happens is, can we consider classroom itself as a theater, classroom itself as a place where a play takes place? The only thing difference between an actual play and the classroom play is that for the actual play, we have a script, we do rehearsals, and then we come and perform, we have audience, and then we probably ticket them, and then we have a story. We have a beginning, middle, and an end. Sometimes we have an interval. The structure of a play doing theater, that structure may not be there when you consider classroom as a stage, but then most of the other things can be possible there. Is there a possibility for stories to come in the classroom? So when there is a story, can we, I'm sure most of you English teachers would do enactment, role playing, task-based learning, all these things in a way you do consider. Unconsciously, we are considering classroom as a theater stage. We are in a way playing, if not pretending, we are playing the role of a teacher and a student. So when we are playing that role, can we make use of that atmosphere in order to turn the classroom itself into a theater space? So here I would like to share an example of how we do it, or have been doing for some years, about how classrooms become theater spaces. Classrooms become a stage. For example, we have a novel that is prescribed for the first three general English students. Generally, for general English students, I'm teaching it for the English literature students. So this novel is George Orwell's Animal Farm. So what Animal Farm is got, if you look at it, it's got 10 chapters, and they're all very short chapters. You can read one chapter in a class, and if you have 10 hours, you can finish reading the entire novel. And I have 4 hours in a cycle for this particular class. And if you take 4 hours and calculate the number of hours I might be meeting them in the whole semester, it comes to close to 54 hours. And if you consider me taking leave or some other program canceling the classes, I would get around 40 to 45 classes. So keeping this in mind, I can plan how to turn this classroom into a stage using this novel, and making the uh, students perform each chapter. So usually I have 70 students in that class. So I divide because there are 10 chapters, I divide 7 into 10. So there will be 10 teams. Each one will be focusing on each chapter. Now, like I told you, we can turn anything into a performance if you look at it from everything from a performance point of view. To give you an example for that, if you call someone theatrical, if you call someone dramatic, if you call someone a drama queen, why do we do it? Let us think about it little seriously. Call someone, you are exaggerating a lot of things. You are pretending to be something else. Now, sometimes students act too much. I think teachers use that expression too much. You are acting too much. Don't overact. We say that to students. Uh, what do they do when are we forced to say you are overacting, or you are too much acting, you're acting too much, or you're a drama queen? When do we use these expressions? I want us to think about it a little seriously. Whenever students uh, exaggerate, whenever uh, there is a digression in the original way it should happen. In traditional way, certain things must happen. A class has to happen, teacher has to teach, students have to take notes, attendance has to be taken. This is the structure of a classroom. These are the things that are supposed to happen in a classroom. If something else happens other than that, we consider that as a digression. It is not what is meant to happen, it is a digression. So I will give you another example. uh, we go to watch movies individually or as a family or as with friends. Watching a movie will have a story, movie will have action, movie will have actors, and then it will have a beginning, middle, and an end. You either like the movie or you don't like the movie. But when you are going to watch a movie, if you can put the actual movie to the background and look at our own behavior, human behavior, how do we prepare ourselves to go to watch a movie? How do we dress? How do we get ready? Or what kind of transport we take? Who are all we taking with us? And what are we going to do just before entering cinema theater? And what are we going to do after we finish the movie, watching the movie? Or what are we doing in the middle, during the interview? These are all important questions. So what are we doing at that time collectively put together, from the idea that you get to watch a movie till you complete watching that movie, and then having dinner coming out of the theater, and then tomorrow also talking about that movie, or the next day talking about that movie. Or for example, I remember one of my aunts was fully pregnant, full term, went to watch a movie, got her pains, went to hospital, had a baby. And whenever we talk to that boy, we say, "Lay, you were born in a cinema theater." He will be reminded often throughout his life that you were born almost in a cinema theater. What are we actually doing there as humans, as human behavior, is that we are performing a particular story throughout. That means the is about connected with, it's almost as if the movie watching experience is continuous. This idea I get, for example, if I do a play one day, and in that play I get down from the stage and talk to the audience, in a breaking the fourth wall kind of a play. And then I finish the production, I go away. Next day, when I'm in the corridor, one of the audience members comes to me, who was an audience member yesterday, comes to me and says, I'm not very sure if you are still acting or you have come out of the character or not. Because in their mind, am I out of the stage or am I still pretending to be who I am? So in the sense, they continue the performance that has taken place earlier. Likewise, when we talk about a memory, through memory, we talk about some performance in the past, we continue that performance. So this is the understanding I got about performance, that it is a continuous process. It it kind of moves in between. It is a porous relationship between fictional world and the non-fictional world. It continues to move from each other. There is a loop between the fictional world and the non-fictional world, and performance is something that binds them together, constantly going in a loop. So that is how I would like to see the classroom also as a stage, because the digressions that happen in a classroom can be made use of by the teacher if you look at it from a performance point of view. I will give you an example how that can be done. For example, I was teaching a poem called some poem by Tagore, Tame Bird Was in a Cage. So as English teachers, we are very adamant about bringing the text to class. So if students don't bring the text to class, that is we get really angry, and then we say throw them out of the class or ask them to go get one copy. We do ask to, at least we got that kind of a response from our teachers. We don't know if today we can do that. However, having a text is very, very important for the students. But English teachers will agree with me when I say there will always be a few people who will not bring any text to class. And when they don't bring any text to class, as you enter the classroom and ask everyone to take up your text, you can visibly see the palpability of those people who don't have a text. They are shifting in their seats, they're squirming, they're looking for some help from somewhere, thinking that somebody will have an extra text so they can share it with them. They try all those things. So if I'm looking at it from a traditional point of view, I will say get up, go out. Or I will also say sit in one corner, or just say bring your text class next class. I will definitely see that behavior from that student who didn't bring the text as a digression. It's something that is different from what should be supposed to be happening. Now I'm going to look at it from a performance point. So I go, this is a real experience. Matthew was there in the class. This is 5 years ago. Matthew was there in the class. He didn't have a text. I knew Matthew didn't have a text because I could see him. So I'm asking, Matthew, why don't you stand up and read the poem? Very well, I know that he's not going to read because he doesn't have a text. And then I realized he didn't have a text. So I asked one of the neighbors to give him a text and ask him to read. Now he has a text, but he doesn't want to read. I'm sure you all had that experience. The student goes, sir, please, sir, please, please, please. No, 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 sir, no, sir, no, sir. No, no, please. Not me, not me. My throat, my throat. You can see that. I'm sure you all relate with what I'm saying. You have all kinds of facial expressions, all kinds of, you can see the hand goes like this, all their fingers come together, they're pleading with you. They're saying, no, no, don't make me to stand in front of the girls. Don't make me to do this. Don't make me to stand in front of the class. I'll make mistakes and it'll be very embarrassing. You can see the expressive face. So when I look at Matthew, I look at him and I tell him, Matthew, that is an expressive face. You should be on stage. So this is performance point of view for me. So I'm saying, okay, Matthew, come. Let's do something. Let's read this together. So I take Matthew onto the stage and Matthew and I read. And I'll talk about reading at a later stage. How also their theatricality, their theater techniques in terms of reading for theater cups. Suddenly, Matthew is so upset that I have to pull him up like that. And then as I read, once with him, twice with him, 3 times, 4 times with him, slowly he does get the whole thing, then you can say at some point of time, naturally, the students find that he wasn't reading well, then he read well, then he read well, then he really read well. And the students at some point, as he completes one stanza or one line, whatever difficult lines that he had, as he completes it with me, with the techniques that I'll be sharing with you, there what happens is the students start clapping naturally. And then Matthew is now into it. From a person who didn't want to do this to a person who got the acknowledgement from his classmates, wants to do it better now. So what we do is bring a few more people in, make them read all together, and then the reading becomes extremely dramatic. And then the whole class, it looks like as if they performed on stage, the audience were there, students were as audience, and then you can see entire play taking place there. That's how classroom becomes a stage. Sometimes teacher is a performer, sometimes students themselves are performers, sometimes students are audience, sometimes teachers are audience. We can create our own play if we can take the digressive behavior of students and try to make use of that. And that is where what I would like to uh, uh, you know present as an attitude of a teacher when you're dealing with digressive behavior. If you're looking at it from a performance point of view, I see opportunity there. And then that opportunity can be used to a great extent to what Matthew was able to help me. And then later on, what happened with that incident was so close to me. We have a video of that. It's in YouTube. I can share you the link later. And not only that, uh, um, I happened to write an article about it, and then that article I used in several places, like these sessions, and how writing about performance also is also something that we can discuss as we go by. Right now, I said reading as drama. The second part, that's where Matthew comes in. Matthew's, how did he read? What made it dramatic? What do we understand by reading? What is our general notion of understanding, and what theater gives us, what theatrical techniques give us in terms of uh, drama, as reading as drama. When does reading become drama? We usually, from an ELT point of view, we talk about reading as comprehension. We give a passage to students and then ask questions. They have to read the passage. Then there will be some sets of questions. They'll have to answer that question. And if they answer right, we understand that their comprehension is good. If they don't answer well, we say, okay, that's not good. That is from a language point of view, about how to, whether, or from a understanding, comprehension point. But you can look at it. Comprehension will be part of it, but you can look at it, if you look at it from a theater point of view, reading as utterance. That is, I think, more basic than comprehension. Before you understand, you utter. The more you talk about theater and performance in a very, in a sense that you are also talking about in a positive sense, the primitivity of it, the primordial nature of theater. Gesture could probably be the earlier form of communication before language emerged. Gesture could have been, or guttural noises, voices, without any words or any organized sentences or words in the way we understand now as language. It needn't have been that way in the beginning. It could have been just gestures and utterances. And so I would like to see reading itself as drama from the utterance point of view. How do you utter the sound? What are the things that are required when you utter a sound, when you read? So there is something called silent reading. Probably most of us read silently. But to those people who can understand certain passages or anything they read, only if they read louder. Some of us are like that. I cannot understand something if I read it silently. I have to read it aloud. and I can be disturbing a lot of other people, but I have to speak or think aloud or read aloud. Reading aloud is a completely different ball game altogether. The way you understand the same sentences when you're reading silently and the way you're understanding those very sentences when you read them aloud can be very different. And if you, I need not give any proof for this. You can try it yourself and see how different you may feel for yourself. So we are going to look at reading as drama from the utterance point of view. So this is the first paragraph of a short story by Edgar Allan Poe. The name of the short story is Telltale Heart. Can I ask, since I didn't meet you there, I could have helped you read this if we have met in a personal way, but now that you're far away, can I ask one of you to read this? Anyone? Anyone interested to read this?
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. This is Manini.
Hi, Manini. Can you read it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous.
Manini, just a minute. Just a minute.
Yes,
I
sir.
want every one of you to pay very close attention to Manini reading now, because Manini will read again. And if you notice, if you are very keen about this, I want you to later talk about how those two readings were different. So I think we need a real observation here. Manini.
Okay, sir. Can I, sir, start?
Yes, 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 please.
True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and I am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was a sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How, then, am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story.
Thank you, Manini. Manini, now I'm going to just
Okay.
go to the next slide, and I want you to read the next slide as well.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was a sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I had many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story.
Can someone who probably made up the observation, can someone talk now about any differences in the way two readings or how they appeared? Yes. Anyone? Jesse, ma'am.
So maybe I don't know. I just felt the two hyphens probably made me to kind of pause and
Yeah. I,
made
I
me
thought
use
I
different
thought the
tone
whole
probably.
reading slowed down,
Yes. Yeah.
if not drastically, but definitely considerably it slowed down in the middle.
Okay.
If you notice the previous slide, the previous slide was my way of putting it. Like I removed all this slide that you see on screen is the exact way Edgar Allan Poe wrote it. And I removed all the hyphens, and sometimes I removed the comma, and I put it like a plain sentence. When you read it, it had impact. But when you read this, it's almost as if Poe wanted you to read it like this. And now you can see the way words are ordered, and then the hyphens give us those pauses. The pauses heighten the mood or the impact on one's mood about the eeriness of the story that may follow. So the length of time that you must give between true, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and I am. That time is where the idea of drama, the idea of reading becomes as drama. This we call pause, intonation, and melody, and so many other words that we'll talk about as we go. So, whenever I read a Poe short story, especially by Poe and several others, if you happen to read it aloud, perhaps if you're reading this silently, we will never know whether that impact that's happening in your head is going to be passed on to the rest of them. But if you're reading it aloud and with the pauses that are expected of us to give, then uh, the there is an audience for that. So when we read aloud, there is an assumption that there is an audience. In that way, you try to convert reading into drama. So the idea of silent reading is great for one's own understanding, but there is no theater in that because there is no audience there. But when we read aloud, and then when we read aloud, obviously we will be there will be demand on us to give the pauses, to be melodic where places where you have to be, and you have to give the right kind of intonations. Those are the things, other facial expressions you may have to give. All those things we will see as we in the next slides. Then that converts the act of reading itself as drama. So I would like to, at this moment, I would like to share another small video that a friend had shared a couple of days with me, and I give it to you to see how reading is so given so much value that they even staged the reading of the Hound of Baskervilles. So I'll just show that video. I have to stop sharing. Okay, I'll come in a second. Yes, it's ready. Now I'll share the screen.
But I think it's not audible. So,
So now can you come back to, I think I have to stop sharing. Share. So we have come back to this. Now, I hope you saw this. Look at the importance that is given to just reading. There are so many musicians outside, and whenever the moment came, they were playing the music to create that impact. So just reading itself can be highly dramatic if we can extract the drama out of the text. That is one of the things that Dr. Rajani also used to speak. Uh, he had also, in a way, did not have any formal training in theater. And when I did ask him, how did he come to theater? He gave me an answer that really shocked me. He said, I came to theater through poetry. And that I thought he had great training in the during his childhood, and then he was always into theater. And that's how we have seen him. But he was never interested to teach a play in the classroom, although he would like to do a performance of a play. He would never be interested in teaching a play, but he would be really interested in teaching a poem. And then he said, I came to theater through poetry. And so that is 1 second. And so when I interviewed him, he told me that poetry is the cause or the reason why he came to theater. And then I wondered about it. And then through that discussion, we came to know that in every line, in every word, there is embedded drama. And as a reader of these texts, we must be able to extract the drama out of the text. He would use the expression almost lift the drama out of the text. And so that comes only by reading dramatically and trying to create the atmosphere around that reading, which is in a way the drama. So we move from here to the next. So there are three important things when it comes to theater. The human voice, the human body, and the space around. These are the three important things that we use maximum, we make maximum use of. Apart from that, the size of the stage, the length of the stage, the number of lights you have, the kind of costumes you wear, the makeup that you have, all of these things are in a way added elements to the actual theater of the human body and the human voice and the movement. And so what we do in order to get the voice, the theater voice, is some of these exercises. So these are the things we would have done if we had met. So I'm just going to tell you what we do in order to get the volume and the clarity and the melody and the pauses. So we'll start with, say, getting clarity. How do we get clarity? So we are just going to go a little theoretically here. Clarity is achieved when the vowel sounds are stretched a little more than usual. So if you want to say uh, uh, he went to the station, so you can
Excuse me,
say,
sir.
yes.
Sir, can you share your PPT?
Oh, I'm not sharing. Okay.
Ah,
Is this
okay. Thank
sharing?
you, sir. Yes, sir. It's clear. Thank you.
Right. Okay, so you can see the words here on top, voice, and then you will see 5 other words. So we are going to talk about clarity now. So to achieve clarity of speech, first we must realize that uh, most of the time we speak and we think we have spoken, but most of the time other people who hear us, they don't really get what we are saying because we smudge the sounds of the words. The sound of one word and the sound of another word get smudged together, and then you're not able to separate them. So when you have to achieve clarity of sound, that is when you need to uh, pronounce every sound fully before you go to the next sound. So this is possible when we stretch the vowel sounds a wee bit more. So whenever you come across sounds like ah, e, o, u, these are the sounds we stretch a wee bit more. And that is how we achieve clarity. And also be very, very careful about what kind of sounds, what kinds of sounds are possible for being mistaken for one for another. For example, sounds like B and P may get mistaken for each other. Sounds like A and K may get mistaken for each other. So and the nasal sounds can be very inaudible. The n sound, right? You can say your name is something that starts with N, and then if you don't pronounce it properly, people can mistake it for something else. So, or the last syllables of every word, most of the time, it's possible we can swallow the sound and not throw it out. So, these are the hindrances that we have in expressing ourselves, our voices clearly. Therefore, we have exercises for overcoming these hindrances. And one of the first exercises that we do is breathing exercises. So if you have to have clarity of speech and proper volume in your speech, and then have enough amount of melody in it, melody in order to break the monotony of your voice, and then giving the right pauses at the right time, because choosing the right time, choosing the right space in a particular sentence and say, I'm going to pause here. It is a decision made by your knowledge of grammar, by your knowledge of, or by your ability to guess what the audience will be able to understand and how much they'll be able to understand. If it's a large sentence, if it's a long sentence, where do you give pause? And probably grammatically, there is no comma there, but you may have to pause. So those decisions are very important decisions in order to give those kinds of pauses. So to put all of these things together, we start with breathing exercises. There'll be a couple of them, 2 or 3 kinds of exercises that will give you enough breath in order to be loud enough and clear enough. Now, how do you get the volume? We have one exercise, and most of the time when students come to us in the beginning, they're unwilling, and so most of the time they say, my voice is only this much, or I have a throat ache. All these kinds of excuses we come across, and then we slowly start doing an exercise to get the volume. Is we try to say 1 to 10 from the lowest volume to the highest that one can go. So we start with the whisper, saying 1, 2, 3, and then we go up till the topmost that you can go till 10. And then we'll also come from 10 to 1 with from the topmost to the lowest. And then when we do this exercise, we know where, how loud we can be and how low we can get. And we also know the middle part. And so based on the atmosphere you're in, now I'm speaking, say 5. 5 is enough. I'm making a decision. It's enough. 5 is enough for me. So I'm keeping my volume at 5. But if I go on a stage where there are 100 people sitting in the hall and I don't have a mic, then I probably have to take 8 as my number. And if there is somebody else looking away that side, some 100 meters away, and I want his attention, I have to shout, then I have to go 10. So we kind of know by these exercises where we stand and how we can make use of that. And then this continuous exercise of the volume will also give us, it's not about getting a loud voice that's important. It's about making the decision about when to use what amount of volume. So according to the situation, that is an interesting part of getting the volume, and the exercises also. Clarity also, I spoke. When it comes to melody, it's an interesting one. It's very intrinsic. You don't really know how to do it. There are no exercises for us to get melody, but being just conscious of not having a sing-song way of speaking. So if you notice, some people may have a very sing-song way of speaking, and you can almost go to sleep because the content of what with their speeches may be really good, really interesting, but because it has a rhythm to it, and the rhythm is continuously the same, it's like a lullaby then. But when it comes to melody, is a word that we use in voice culture in terms of having a variety, and then that variety is going to really help keep your audiences interested in what you say. So what I just did was I slowed down. The moment you speak slowly, I can speak things, very normal things. But if you speak slowly, suddenly the audience were going to sit up and think that this man is going to say something really important or is saying something important. If you notice yourself speaking serious things, naturally your pace would reduce. And then the slower you speak, the more gravity you can give to your content. So melody comes in there, the tempo, the speed with which you speak. If you notice comic moments, most of the time the comic timing, why is it a matter of timing? Because it is in not only in the timing, it is in the amount of time one takes to say that line quickly. Sometimes most of the comic jokes are in the way how you say it quickly. It's like a rush of words that says. So, for example, in a play, Importance of Being Earnest, Algernon is asking Lane this question. Lane, have you ever been married? And Lane answers, yes, sir. And that was because of a misunderstanding between myself and a young woman. You need to have this space. If you reduce it anywhere, the moment you say misunderstanding, audience will guess the rest of the sentence. And if you let them guess the rest of the sentence, they're not laughing that much. So certain jokes, you'll have to rush the line because you cannot make them guess it. That's why timing is important. Certain things can be slowed down according to the context. So usually comic elements are little faster and grave moments are a little slower. Does not apply all the time, but to a great extent, this can be true. And so this is how we do the voice culture. So this is something that we do before we start rehearsals. These are warm-up exercises that we have before rehearsals, or if I'm training a student to read in the classroom and they're not loud and clear, then we go back to do these exercises and come back and read, and you see a difference. So that's the voice part. Now the body part. Okay, we have half an hour more. So now the body is probably the biggest hindrance for proper communication, for performance, for even taking a class. If we are able to have some control over our body and how it moves and what it does, then we can probably have more control over how our audience are going to be. In other words, how our students are going to be receiving what we say. One of the most important things about the body is the stance. How do we stand in front of a class or in front of a people, in front of an audience? If it's a public speaking situation, not only during programs, but also in the classroom. Classroom is probably the most important public speaking moment. The stance is important. Now, I don't know if I have the space to stand and show you about it. So I'll just theoretically tell you. Again, problems of stance. What are the problematic ways we stand? How students stand? When you can imagine this, I don't know if you're able to see my fingers. If these are the two legs of a person, and you can see if you ask them, the students, to come forward and speak, and they may be coming forward and speaking, and they go like this, back and forth, and back and forth as they talk, back and forth, and back and forth. And this is so rhythmic that this becomes more important for the audience. Unconsciously, they'll start looking at the moving person and not so much what they are saying. So you're not communicating really well because of the unsure body language. So that's something we have to really counter. And another problem with the stance is that 1.5 leg, you can see it's almost or 1.5 in the sense only the toes would, one leg they would stand upon, and another leg only the toes would be on the ground, the rest of the leg would be up. This we call as the flamingo type. And there again you can see it kind of shows there is some lack of confidence, or the maximum amount of drama is not being explored and exploited there. So stance is important. So the best stance is this: 50% of your body, upper body weight on the left leg, 50% of your upper body weight on the right leg. Stand. Don't have to stand too much of a V or too close to each other, just how much that allows you. And as you walk also, the movement, that's where I come. How do we walk? We all have a natural way of walking, but if we train yourself to walk in the classroom, you can learn to walk just about how much the leg allows you to step. So not taking smaller step, not taking consciously longer steps, but aware of how much the body allows you, that much comfortably if you move, and put the entire soul on the ground. Lift it and put it on the ground. And perhaps if possible, put the heel first. Put the heel first as you walk. You don't make any sound, unnecessary sound that will hinder your conversation. These are techniques that we use in order to avoid. In fact, most of the theater techniques is to avoid a lot of noise, avoid a lot of other communication that you don't intend to happen. Most of the time, you are successful in your theatrical communication, in the English classroom, in your communication, in your words. That means if you avoid a lot of other kinds of unintended communication. So that is one thing. So stance and movement, and for eye contact also, most of the time the people can speak really well. They can be very good. Their voice will be great and everything, but they'll be finding it very hard to look into people's eyes. So how to look at people, and those exercises we have during workshops where you just get used to it. You keep looking at a person's eyes, then we switch partners and look into another person's eye, then we look into another person's eye. You just get comfortable looking into each person's eye, and that should be fine. And gesture also, Hamlet tells us, I mean, we have Hamlet here in the stage here in the PPT there. He says, don't saw the air with your hand, things like that. So being too conscious of the hands, putting it into the pockets or putting it across your breasts, that can be very difficult in getting across your ideas. Gesture, word for action, action to word could be a good lesson we can learn from Hamlet. And just allowing naturally for the hand to move the way it moves. Forgetting about the hands is important, because that's the most important thing. We don't know what to do with the hands. And what happens is the hands become such a terrible problem for us. We tend to hide them in some way or the other. But the moment we forget about the hands, then the hands take over, because the whatever the mind thinks, the hand would go there, and if it's natural, it will be nice. When it comes to facial expressions also, we have some exercises to loosen the muscles, the tummy muscles, from the tummy muscles to the facial muscles, so that we can have a very easy, smooth way of facial expressions as well. So these are practical things we would have done when we would have met. Otherwise, these are some of the things that you could do in order to go. Now you do all these things and go back to reading as drama. That again would go to the next level. The next thing that we're going to look at is, one second. How in the classroom, what happens to the classroom, or what happens to the English classroom the moment you take theater techniques inside? First thing what happens is, my position as a teacher and the hierarchy of a teacher will come down. And I think the more you're comfortable with not having hierarchy in the classroom, is when we become, we are able to really explore the power of theater in the class. If I have to maintain my hierarchy and also get theater to work, that may be a little hard. I'm sure there are places where we need to really put our foot down and say, no, that's not happening. But in a general sense, we have theater naturally drains away the hierarchy and then keeps everything together. So what happens is, I don't have an idea or an end in mind when I go into a class with theater techniques. I am going to go there to find out what I will get. In other things, what am I going to construct with my students rather than what instructions I'm going to give them, and they are going to follow my instructions. There may be a few in order to frame the whole class. These are things you can do, these are things that you can't do, certain things. But within that frame, we are looking to construct with our collaboration. And therefore, what happens in a classroom where you take theater techniques into with this voice and body and movement and space, most of the time, the learning is something that we ourselves explore or know only then. What I learn and what the students learn happen at the same time in that class. It's not something I know already and I'm going to give it to them. And it differs from class to class. If it's a history classroom, what we construct together can be different from a class, from another science class, from other economics class or some other class. If I go with the same ideas, and we are all, because based on the personality of the students, based on how they receive whatever the techniques that we use, we construct a knowledge, we construct our own learnings there that is only specific to that class. And that is happening because we collaborate, and hardly the hierarchy situation comes in unless if it's a situation to be handled. Otherwise, that's one thing. And one more thing that's interesting during that point is that, as I told you, as I gave you the example of going to the cinema theater, and how not just the story of the cinema, the plot of the story is what performance is, but all around it, how we went and how we experienced the watching of the movie, and then how we continue to remember it later, how that is performance and how that continues. That kind of digressions are allowed in this kind of a classroom. That's why Matthew is able to come on stage. Otherwise, if I did not allow that digression to happen and then cut short that and then continued with another student who had the text and who is willing to read, then we are not exploring another dimension of another kind of a student. So that is what theater can also offer for us. Theater techniques can offer for us in the classroom. We can collaborate, we can construct more than the instructions given, and it can be unique to a particular classroom. I've been really, what do you call, surprised by how what works in one class doesn't work in another class. And that is dependent on the different quality of students that come, and their experiences are different. And then you allow that direct digression to take. So everything for its own moment, and then that experience, it's going to work for us. So with this, I would like to take the last 5 minutes, and then I can give it to you for your responses and questions. Another technique that we use, this can be used for speaking skills. So as I told you, the title is performing the English classroom. We have turned the English classroom into a drama situation, a kind of a stage space itself. And now we have something called narrating a story. It's simply storytelling, but I would like to call it as dramatic narrative here, because I give them a frame in order to narrate a story. And when you give this frame, and within this frame, they have to tell a story, then it will be really dramatic. That's why I want to call it as dramatic narrative. The frame is this. Now, this also something we could have done as an exercise. Now, the frame is this. I would divide the students into different groups. And in each group, one student has to tell a personal incident that took place in their life to the rest of them in that group. If 10 people are in one group, one person will tell an incident that happened in their life to the rest of the 9 people. And they cannot tell anything that did not happen. Now, this is completely in the hands of that student. That student has to be honest about it. I tell them, choose a incident from your life. Let it not be fiction. Let it not be something that happened in your friend's life. Let it not be something that happened in a movie that you watched, or don't tell anything like that. Choose an incident that you recall often in your life. And if you're not willing to share it, then don't choose that. Choose only that moment in your life that you're willing to share without adding or deleting any moment in that particular episode of your life. If I chose a particular episode, then I have to be completely honest to that episode, and knowing fully well nobody can cross check you. So I just leave it to the student, saying, I'm just going to trust you that you are going to narrate to your team an incident from your life that really happened in your life without deleting, adding anything. So they start talking. One student will start telling the story of their life. They'll talk about how they won prizes in school or their sports activities, or some narrations that I came across where how they nearly died and somebody at the last minute somehow pulled them out of the water, and that being alive now itself is a great miracle. So each one of them had different stories over the years with this one. Now, after the narration is done, I asked the rest of the 9 of those people to choose one more person from their team who is going to narrate the first person's story to everyone in the class as if it happened in her own or his own life. So, if my friend had narrated the story to me, and then I now narrate it as if it happened to me. Even if it is gender, I will change the gender. If a woman told me the story there and I have to tell it, I will not say it's a woman's story. I will somehow tell it as if it's a male story. So those are the things that I give them as a frame. And then the rest of the 9 people, the second re-narration, this is the second part of it. When the re-narration takes place, before the re-narration takes place, the rest of the team must choose one person and prepare that person. They have to tell, prepare that person. You know what, this is what she told. So you might, don't forget this incident. Don't forget that moment. Give this order. This is the plot. So they have to prepare that person. Once they prepare that person, now the re-narration takes place. The re-narration takes place for the entire class. When they finish narrating it, we will check with the original narrator whether that person added anything or deleted anything. And usually, most of them will say, very well narrated, very well put. Sometimes some students would take liberty and change things. But what is more important here is they have spoken, and in the meantime, they have listened to each other very carefully. Listening is an integral part of this communication process. So what somebody missed, that team member is going to say, or what someone did really well in the re-narration, the team members are able to come and appreciate that. So you can see, because of this storytelling way of technique that is there in the class, we are able to let them know about how to order your speech or how to listen to something, and how to know that whatever we talk about as active listening, passive listening, all of these things do come into this. So it is by these few elements of drama in the classroom, we are able to achieve a few things that probably in the traditional sense we may not be able to achieve, particularly speaking about the voice and the body and space, and also the storytelling technique. These are my personal experiences I shared, and I tried to theorize them to an extent and share it with you. Here, I would like to thank you for the patient listening. If you have any questions, you may ask, or any observations.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very informative talk. That was mind-blowing with information and a lot of resources packed. Thank you so much. Participants, you can ask any questions to the resource person if you have.
I think Rohini has asked a question in the chat box. She's asking, apart from students acquiring the role of performance, you think theatrical teaching learning method can facilitate the inquiry skills in learning? I'm not very sure, ma'am. In my experience, I probably will think that the ones who are really interested will go forward. I think that is irrespective of whether it was a theatrical teaching or not. In my experience, what happened in the theater class somehow had an impact in their real life, and the inquiry skill, probably they may not go to the library to with a attitude to do research on a certain topic or anything. That I have not seen, but it did have a telling impact on their regular life. And the inquiry, if I have to reinterpret your term, may not convert into research, but it definitely converts into searching within themselves and searching in the other people and their relations between people and their outlook of life. These things I have seen definitely had an impact, and that I think we can look at. That's in a way an inquiry. There are ways of thinking, ways of questioning themselves over certain things and overcoming all of those things. So in a way, that sense that help, but in a general sense, when you say inquiry skills, I do understand that research element to it. That may be very, very far and few between.
Any questions, audience? Actually, the Zoom link gets automatically disconnected exactly at 3. That's how it is designed. If you have any doubts, you can ask now. Thank you so much, sir, Dr. David Wesley, for readily accepting our invitation and making this a grand success. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Coming up to the participants, you can submit your feedback link, and we need to wait for another 1 day. We will be packed up with knowledge and other resources. So have a happy evening and goodbye. Thank you.